Woody, everything work out for you there?
Yeah, I just got the PowerPoint. I hope I'll be able to present it.
Okay. I have it pulled up on my screen if we need it as well.
What's that?
I've got it pulled up on my screen should we need it.
Oh, okay.
We must have all gotten hot today. We're awfully quiet.
I think some of us got cooked.
Right?
Where's Ann Donahue?
She's on, sir.
She's on the phone. She's just not on video.
Yep,
Yeah,
not showing,
okay,
not
thank you.
showing my face today, John. Sorry. Think of me as, I don't know, Raquel Welch up there or somebody, you know.
I'll work
One
on.
clerk said he was traveling, so is he not going to be here?
Who's that?
He is not.
Ron Claire, yeah, Ron Claire is not going to be here this evening. So do we have everyone? Let's see, except maybe the vice mayor's here. So it looks like we have 6 of us, correct? 1,
Yes, there's 6.
3, 4.
Lisa and Ann are on the phone.
Okay, so we have everyone here.
Oh, there's
So we
Lisa.
can
Lisa?
we can get started. There's no, on the agenda, there's no call for Pledge of Allegiance, so we'll just call the meeting to order. First item of business is to discuss Camelback parking lot. Looks like Woody, you have a presentation?
Yes, Mayor. Actually, I don't have a presentation, but the information that, hang on a second, is in your packet that I was presenting. And I just lost it. Hang on a second. Okay, so what we're talking about tonight is a couple of things regarding the Camelback Park. First is a capital item that was put in the program for this year for providing an internal parking lot. And in your packet, there's an exhibit that shows where the parking lot would be located. And this planning for the parking lot was done in conjunction with the Parks and Rec staff and the city manager. And the idea is that whenever there's soccer, I guess is the main program at the park, there's quite a bit of parking that occurs along Villanueva. And of course, there are cars driving by and people getting in and out of cars after they've parked, which creates a bit of a situation that could be a problem. So we've been talking about providing a parking lot dedicated just to the park, inside the park itself. And I don't know if I can't call it up, but I can refer to the exhibit that's in your packet that shows the location of the park, or the parking lot, which is where the swings currently are located. And that would provide 20 spaces. And then if we added parallel parking by widening along Villanueva, then we could add another 17 spaces, which I'm told would be plenty for most of the events that happen there, if not all of them. So again, this was in the FY22 capital plan, budgeted at $165,000. However, due to rapidly increasing costs in concrete and labor, it's probably, and having to relocate the swings and dealing with the irrigation system and so on, it's probably going to approach more like $240,000. Staff recommends proceeding with the design and construction, but it's something that we could work on during the next year and get it ready for next year, for next year's capital program, or whatever the council would prefer. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Woody, looking at the photo, there's something located where the parking lot is proposed to go that looks like it might be a swing set or something. Is it a jungle gym in there also? What is that?
No, it's just a swing set. And that's what I was saying, that would have to be relocated. And frankly, I think it's a good idea to relocate that swing set anyway, because it's kind of close to the road. We haven't picked a spot for that, where it would go, but if we move ahead with this project, then that would be one of the things that we do.
But Parks and Rec should be given the courtesy of taking a look, trying to figure out where to relocate that swing set to. The road is pretty wide right there, and I live in an area with very, very narrow roads, so I know what we can get by with. But do we really need to widen the road even more there? It's pretty darn wide already.
Yeah, part of the problem is that this parking is occurring on a curve. So as people are coming around the curve, they're being confronted with cars that are parking on the side of the road. Now, local residents are probably used to that, but somebody that isn't used to that would be surprised to see so many cars parked along the side of the road, coming around a curve like that. So we'd only be widening it about 8 feet or so, which is enough room for parallel parking.
Would our bird lane speed humps
Mr.
help?
Vice Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor, as you drive, I drive that corner all, pretty much every day, or quite a number of times throughout the week. And anytime there's a lot of cars parked along the side of the road by the park, you can't safely stay in your lane if you're going to the north and turning towards the west. You can't stay if there's not enough room. You end up, to be safe, you end up driving over the line in the other opposed, oncoming traffic's lane, which is fine if there's nobody coming, but obviously, and sometimes you'll end up literally with cars on both sides, and then it's really tight in there in terms of for people driving. It's not a safe situation.
If we slowed the traffic down with our bird lane speed humps, would that take care of the speed issue? I mean, it seems like it's more of a speed than it is a width issue.
It's not. It's really. I don't think it really is a speed issue. Councilman Rososi.
No, I drive around there all the time, and during soccer season, you got to be really careful because there's cars parked on both sides. There's doors opening and kids jumping out and running across the street. It's a very unsafe situation. And as the mayor said, when there's cars parked on both sides, it's very difficult for two cars going in opposing directions to pass each other, let alone be safe. So no, there's no question it's not wide enough there the way it's currently set up.
Mayor, I have a question. So in the talk of where this was going to be located, did we at all look at the west side of that park, which 3,000 times I've driven by there, even during soccer season, nobody uses that west side. It's kind of a funny shape and an interesting, but my thought is like, that's not even utilized, nor maybe can be. Maybe why not put parking down there on the farthest west side?
Yeah, to be honest, Councilman Donahue, when we started talking about this, I assumed that's what we were going to end up with. So I'm surprised to see the proposal to put it kind of in the middle of the area where people actually use. The west end of the park is not used much, and if we actually move the wall out to be consistent with the alignment of the wall as it's already being built along the west, coming up from the west to the east, then there's a lot of room for parking at the west end of the park. Yeah. It's just a question of whether people will use it, because it won't be as close to the activities that they may be participating in.
Well, then my thought about that, because I thought the same thing. The other issue there is Oro Vista comes out right where it looks like you're going to be putting parking, which is going to be more traffic. But why can't you put signs up there that say no parking from 4 to 7, or put them up and take them down during soccer season. I don't know. Anyway. Matthew, you have an answer.
Yes, ma'am, I do. So we had a lot of complaints about this last soccer season, and that was the first solution I offered to the citizens that were complaining. Let me put up no parking signs there. No, we can't do that, because then when visitors come to my house, they have nowhere to park. Because that would have been the easiest solution, and they're not interested in doing that for Vista. As far as putting the parking at this end of the park versus the other end, the reason why we designed it at this end was, from my experience, people that want to go to a playground, they want to park as close as possible. It's the classic example of when you go to a gym, everybody wants to park outside the front door to walk into the gym. It's the same way with the park. People that are parking at the park to use the playground want to park close. I worry if we build at the western corner, as the mayor said, once the wall is moved, there's plenty of room there to build a parking lot. But I don't think it will solve the problem. I think they'll still naturally parallel park along the road, because people by nature want to park as close to the playground as they possibly can for the people that are going there.
Well, my other thought, though, is if you have signs up that say certain times, which is generally evening, right? Sort of 4 to whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
Then our friendly Avondale police drive through and they warn people. I mean, the only other concern I have is that park is heavily used right where you're talking about there for fields. And so we're taking some of the fields away. But
Well, that was the next point I was going to suggest. One thing you'll see in the next part of this meeting is the wall relocation. If the wall is relocated, as staff will be recommending, we will actually have more grass after that's done, even by creating this parking lot. We'll have more grass than we have today, just in square footage.
Can I add something?
Yeah, Councilman Brandon Watson.
Thank you. Yeah, my family all lives on that street. I'm sure most of you know that. So this park is one we've used for a long time. And I would second what Matthew is saying about using the park, using the playground equipment. The people who use that are young families with kids in strollers and carrying equipment and carting little kids. And to have to walk the whole length of the park to get to the playground equipment will lead to them parking in ways they shouldn't be. So I wholeheartedly support putting it where we're talking about. I think we do, looking at what Matthew has proposed with the moving of the wall, I think we pick up enough space that we can bounce our soccer players further east, and maybe even a little bit north. And that helps there. I also don't know, there's a big spot, like you're saying, on the west side, but I don't know that that's big enough to really give us a good parking lot. I think it would be really oddly shaped, and I just don't know that it would be real effective. I think there's also, if I looked at the plan, when I looked at the plan, there's a little bit of a buffer of grassy area between where the parking is going and the houses that back up to the park. Am I correct on that?
Yes, that's correct.
So I can't imagine, the guy who owns that house on the west end would have a parking lot that looks directly in his back door of his garage, and his house is actually a carport. I just don't think that would be very welcome in that neighborhood. I think that putting it where we're talking about makes a lot more sense, especially with the paired parking along the edge of the street further up that you're talking about, or that you proposed. Just my thoughts.
Except then it's in the backyard of the east house on the east side, I guess, isn't it, near there? I don't know. I'm looking at it, but anyway.
That's where I think there's a buffer of grass and the playground equipment, because the playground equipment doesn't move with the exception of the swings. But I can tell you, I can attest to the fact that I pulled out on that street. I can't tell you how many times on a Saturday morning or a fall evening when it's just gotten dark, and almost hit kids, darting across the street with a soccer ball or whatever. So one thing I do know for sure is we need to address this now.
Any other comments from council?
Yes,
Councilman Romack.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of things. I completely agree with Lisa that, there's issues going on with the parking there that need to be addressed. How they get addressed, I think, is probably over my pay grade, and maybe Woody and his group can figure that out. But what I am concerned about is that we have approved a parking lot going in over at Staggs Park. And yet this one at Staggs Park, which has a park on one side and the lake on the other, which has a lot of parking and kids and socializing there. And I don't think it's reasonable to think that this park or parking lot should be funded and move ahead prior to the one at Staggs Park. And just that's just my opinion. I think that we're neglecting other problems, and I don't think that's a reasonable solution.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that we provide input to the staff on this parking solution, on whether the council is in favor of this solution or directing additional work to be done on finding the best solution. But capital expenses, we really should devote at least 1 or 2 meetings to our capital plan to really go through that in detail and understand how much money we have to spend and how we're going to allocate it to the various capital issues that we've got in front of us. Because we have some very large expenditures that we are absolutely committed to already. And I want to make sure that we don't end up, that we don't fund things now that, we really might not be funding the highest priority issue for the city. So my suggestion to council is that we look at this in terms of trying to give input to staff on the solution. And if the solution is okay, then doing the design work on it so we can get a firm cost would be a good idea. But then we need to look at our CIP program in full, at all of the program, and prioritize it, given the situation we're in today, what are the priorities and how should the money be spent, so that we make sure that we take into account the parking lot over at the parking lot over at in the Staggs Park, along with this parking lot. So that's my suggestion to council. Further comments about this layout that the engineers have come up with?
I just have one question.
Uh-huh.
Do we have the ability to do, I know, both projects at the same time? Is there?
I don't know, Lisa. That's our Councilman Brandon Watson. I'm not sure. I suspect we probably do, but I think that it would make a lot of sense for us to sit down and understand what are the resources we're working with, and allocate them in a way that the council knows the answer to that question.
And I'd also like to see us really communicate with the neighbors. I'm sure we will. I don't think that's a foregone conclusion, but make sure they're aware of what's going on and our logic behind where we're placing the parking lot.
I could see the labor. If you look at a house that's labeled 405 or 406, 406, I guess it is. That's directly across the street from that parking lot. They may not be really excited about that parking lot. That'd be my guess, but they might be. They might say that it's going to give us a lot safer situation, and we feel better having it than not having it. But I think there's things like that we do need to go out and investigate before we approve building this project.
Well, Mayor and Council, let me ask, would you like us to explore with the neighbors about this possible location for a parking lot? Or would you like to have it somewhere else in the park? I know we had kind of a mixed bag on that.
Councilor Stossing.
My only feedback on that, Matthew, would be that we just make sure wherever we put it, we're not messing up the ability for that place to hold a soccer field. Because ultimately that's what draws the crowds there. And if we put a parking lot in such that we can't have a soccer field there anymore, then we kind of, we killed 2 birds with 1 stone, I guess, in a bad way.
Agreed.
We won't need the parking lot then. Councilor Womack.
Well, I would just say that I think that we need to explore more options as far as where it can go, because it seems to me you have that Liberty Water has this pump or something right there on that kind of pork chop or whatever you want to call it out there at the west end of that park. And maybe their pumps or their equipment needs to be also inside the fence or wall that we build there around the parking lot. So I would encourage Woody to look at other options.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are different ways to lay this parking lot out also. So, I mean, when I look at it, it's not my favorite design. I think that it's possible where you have these 14 parallel stalls, it may be easier to make that a little bit wider and actually go in and put stalls in here for 28 cars right in the in this area. And you're going up towards a part of the park that we don't really use that much. And if there's an issue with the parking lot being close to the kids' playground equipment, then we can move all the playground equipment. And it's not that huge of a project, and put it close to wherever the parking lot is, so that people who drive there and need to park, they want to be close to the playground equipment. Well, we can just move it and not have it down at that end of the park. So I'd like to see other ideas on this personally.
Can I make one more suggestion too?
Yes. Councilor Watson.
I think we need to really get out and look at it from a driver's point of view as to where it gets difficult to see around that curve, because it's very different from different places. I mean, when we pull out on Ora Vista, I'll look left and then look right and start to pull out, and all of a sudden there's somebody on me that I didn't see. So there are places where because of the curve, you don't have that full view, and that might be something we want to consider in terms of placement.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. This, the entrance to this parking lot is almost directly across the street from Ora Vista, so it may or may not be a good place to come out onto Villanueva. Other council comments that we can give to staff so they can digest and think about this solution. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing that may work, you may have already thought about it, is if we go to that west end, that really odd looking piece in there, and you have a one-way in and a one-way out onto the road, and maybe do angled parking through there. Maybe you can get a better use of that useless space in there to move that parking lot up into that area.
At the gravel, where the gravel is now, sir?
Well, yeah, it's going to be wider if you move the fence back, but we've got this point that's on the western end here, this triangle piece here that's kind of awkward and somewhat useless. So maybe there's a way to take this triangle and have toward the Ora Vista end, you go into the parking lot, they're angled spaces, they come back out closer to Camelback Road right there, where there is not as much of a turn, because it's the coming out part that's the problem. And it looks like at the very, very pointy end of that triangle is where the least of the turn is. So maybe that's a coming out spot that would maybe make it a little bit safer.
We could certainly look at several different locations.
A way to start this, Mr. Scouten, a way to start this analysis might be to sit down and actually draw in the soccer fields. So you know how much of this park is used up if we have one or two soccer games going on. And I don't know if they only play one soccer game or if they actually lay out two fields currently. But if you were to go in and lay that out first, then you could get an idea of where could this parking lot, where could we put it and not have an impact on the use of the park.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Watson.
One more comment. I don't remember seeing on the plans, and I don't have it pulled up right in front of me. If we went on the west end of this, are we talking about putting a wall in between the property owner's home and the park?
Maybe some landscaping. You could put in some trees or something to mitigate any impact on that homeowner pretty easily. A couple of trees or something.
I was just thinking a wall might be a good solution, because people have a tendency to, if there's not some barrier up, to cross it. And
how about oleanders?
Probably not through the oleanders.
What's that?
I said
I
they
think
probably
there-
wouldn't go through the Overlanders,
And
not
there's
if they're
quite a-
smart.
There's quite a distance, I think, from that person's garage to where we're talking about, right? We're not expanding the park. We're just going to put the wall.
No, but I'm just thinking if somebody pulls in, are their car lights going to shine in on the house, at nighttime if you're using the parking space? And are people going to find it an easy way to trespass into that person's yard? I don't know. I can't remember if they have a wall up or not, but I think it's something we should look at if we're really considering that end. How
And
to,
Lisa,
how to
you-
mitigate the effect
Are you
on.
talking about the house that's on the same side as the park?
Yeah.
Okay. Because like
My
you said,
recollection is he's just got a driveway
yeah, it's like a
and no
carport.
wall.
But I think luckily it's
Yeah.
just a carport, so their windows face what direction? South. So hopefully that, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, to think about.
And I think since we're talking of doing wall work there anyway, we could just make a little bit of a wall that came off, and Matthew's suggesting, or we're talking about doing the wall with the wrought iron. That might be a pretty solution that wouldn't be obtrusive. Just a
Mr.
thought.
Vice Mayor. Mr. Vice Mayor, looked like you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Something I sort of mentioned before, but it seems like, we need to be politically correct. We need to maybe take our comments, have them all transcribed, shoved down to Parks and Rec. This is what we have that commission for, is to do this kind of stuff. Have them put together what they think is the best agreement that the staff has worked with them, and then bring it back to us to approve or not approve, as opposed to us sitting there trying to do this.
We can certainly do that, sir.
It probably would be a good idea to take both. If the other parking proposal for Stags hasn't been to RPG, it probably would be a good idea to take them both there before we get too far along here and end up with the commission not being happy with us.
We can certainly discuss both. We haven't already. To be honest, I don't remember if RPG discussed Stag's Park or not before. Tricia, do you remember?
I haven't been involved in any discussions on Stags with RPG. I know they were awaiting council's meeting tonight on Camelback. They were definitely interested in the outcome.
Okay. We can certainly have them talk about both.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Good suggestion from the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any more input that the council wants to give to our engineer? So when he goes to talk with the commission, he will be fully apprised of our thoughts. Councilman Brainerd Watson.
Sorry, my mouse wouldn't work. I wonder if we should make a decision on the alignment of that wall so that when Woody looks at potential redesigns, he knows exactly how much space he's going to have, rather than having him go back and do a redesign now and then make a decision later and then have to adjust it yet again.
And we can certainly do that. I think constructing that wall is one of those items that, I don't know that it's within our CIP capability to do that at the moment, but we can certainly make a decision on relocating the line of the wall so that we can start getting the design done. But that's going to be a pretty expensive proposition as we go, because it's a long section by the time you go from the end of the current wall all the way around the corner and up to where to replace all of the half wall that's in there. But we can talk about that further when we get to the next item. So is there any more comments about this parking situation? Okay, if not, then we're going to go on to item 2, which is the wall. Do we have a presentation on that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Terry, if you can allow me to share my screen.
But you should be able to.
Uh, Wait a minute. I'm not sure.
Woody, I can share screen if you like, if you want to tell me next slide. If you want to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for some reason I can't get the PowerPoint to come up.
No problem. Bear with me just a second, guys. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Yes, I can see it.
You make it full screen, Matthew.
I'm working on it. Are you seeing full screen or are you seeing black screen around it?
Seeing notes.
You're seeing notes, okay. Now let's try it. Woody, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, yeah, just go to the next slide. So some of the considerations we need to think about tonight with regard to Camelback Park wall is whether or not we even want to expand the park boundaries. And one of the considerations for that is the area that we might lose to the proposed parking lot we were just talking about. I'm also going to talk to you about Goodyear Farms parcels, golf course irrigation pipe location, and some alternatives on the location of the wall, and then also solid versus view wall. Next slide. So in terms of expanding the boundaries, this slide just gives you an idea of how much we could expand it. And I'm kind of ignoring the parcels to the west of the green line. So the green line represents where the wall is today. The red line represents where we could put the wall. And it kind of gives you an idea of how much additional property we could bring into the park. And again, ignoring the skinny parcels to the west there. Okay, next slide. If we did an expansion, something like that, move the wall out, we'd probably pick up about an acre of additional area, which would bring the park up to about 6.3 acres, which would represent about a 16% expansion of the park. Next slide. Believe it or not, there's 2 parcels of land in that area that are still owned by Goodyear Farms. There's a long skinny one that is actually inside the park, meaning it's on the south side of the existing wall. And then there's a also wider parcel, but equally long on the north side of the wall. So it's outside of the park, up against our right of way for Camelback Road. And that the purple line there shows the where we think the existing irrigation line is that serves the golf courses. So if you're familiar with how the golf courses are irrigated, they bring groundwater in from further east through this 48-inch pipe and bring it into their golf courses. So that's roughly where the location of the pipe is. The golf course has no idea where the pipe is. They have no mapping. We went out and did some ground penetrating radar. We also did some potholing to try to come up with this location. I have contacted Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company because they're the ones who are paying the taxes on these 2 parcels, and then talked to them about the city acquiring these parcels. They're thinking about it. So I'm hoping to hear back from them soon that they would be willing to donate the parcels to the city. If they did that, then obviously we would have to give the golf course owners an easement for that 48-inch pipe to be on what would then be our property, which is, something that is relatively easy to do. Next slide. And this is just a little information about those two parcels. Are obviously very small, and taxes paid by Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. Next slide. Again, just a kind of a blow up of that to show where the 48-inch pipe is located. It's kind of in that no man's land between the wall and the city or the Camelback Road street improvements. Very little landscaping in that area. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about some options. And for this discussion, I am going to talk about those parcels to the west of the park itself. So Matthew, I don't know if you can run your cursor over there where it says to the west, where it says Litchfield Park. There's two parcels there, and they're both owned by the city. And the current location of the wall is shown in that kind of turquoise color. So you can see the wall runs between those two parcels and then continues on through the park, makes a bend over by Dysart Road and heads south down along Dysart Road. Again, kind of the turquoise green color. That's where the wall is today. One option would be to push the wall out as far as possible and still staying within staying on the right-of-way line. So that would be wall alignment number one, alternate one. That puts the wall out at the right-of-way line, and you can see it runs all the way until you get close to Dysart, and then it kind of dips to the south a little bit. And then we could angle it further south and then go south along Dysart Road to out along the right-of-way line. A sub-alternate to that would be to not follow the right-of-way line. So as you get closer to Dysart Road, going east as you get closer to Dysart, you can see wall alignment number 1A, which is that is the maximum expansion that we could do. And one of the things we have to consider there is that we probably want, someday we probably want to, if we acquire Camelback Road, we may want to create a formal right turn lane on the eastbound approach to Dysart Road. There's kind of an informal one now that people kind of squeeze by the other cars and make their right turn. But if we were to make a formal right turn there, we'd want to make sure that the wall wouldn't be in the way of that. I think there's plenty of room to do that, but we would want to check that. So that's 1 and 1A. And again, 1A is the maximum expansion that we could do. Alternate two.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
A comment, just so this picture gives a good place to provide a comment to council. Over the last, I'm going to say year to a year and a half, a year and a half ago, there was an idea raised by some of the leadership in the Mavericks about putting in a park, basically similar to the Kiwanis Park, but putting in a park in this area that is between the orange, kind of the orange line and the blue line on this drawing, the kind of turquoise line, which I think the turquoise line is the current wall.
That's right.
So with the location of the current wall, there's a lot of room at that corner to put in a nice park that would be very similar to the Kiwanis Park. The idea was expressed more than a year ago initially. It was brought up again more recently with the Mavericks again, with the potential of having that park be a memorial park in honor of Mike Yates. So that I think that idea is still being put. It's still being considered by the Mavericks, and you know, I think there's probably a reasonably good chance that they're going to ask us to be able to come in and put a memorial park in there, again, similar to what the Kiwanis did over on Indian School. So we should at least consider, if we're going to go down this path and move the wall around, we may want to take the time to figure out if the Mavericks are going to get serious about actually wanting to put that on the corner. And if they are, keeping our alignment of the wall as we go across that corner in a space that allows enough space for that to happen. Because I think that would be a nice use of the corner. It would definitely make it a much more attractive corner for us in terms of people as they come across Dysart and head to the west on Camelback. I think it would be a nice way for them to be entering the city. So it's just a piece of information that we should take into account.
So Mayor, I just have a quick question. So that would be a visual park, not a usable park, like we have across from Walgreens. Is that what you're talking about? One that's along Indian School with all the cacti?
Yes, it's that, and that I'm not sure that the Kiwanis Park is it's not a usable park in the sense that you probably wouldn't go there to have a picnic.
Right.
But there is a pathway that kind of winds through there, and I think the pathway was originally intended that people could go and look at the different kinds of cactus that are in there.
Okay, gotcha.
So I think there might be some uses of it, but probably not. You might. I doubt that. I don't know this for a fact. I haven't really talked to the Mavericks in any detail about what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
Other than just the concept is it's going to be like the Kiwanis Park. You might put in the benches along the pathway and let people sit, but I'm going to guess that you also might not do that just because there's going to be traffic on Dysart and Camelback, and may not be a place where you really want to sit.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, before I move on to alternate 2, I want to talk about those 2 parcels to the west of the park. Right now, the wall splits those, so the north parcel is a part of the Camelback Road street scene, if you will. And the south parcel is what I would say is in the city. Just by virtue of the wall, it's a part of the roadscape, being in the way of a roadscape in the city. So alternate 1 brings both of those, or brings the second parcel into the city. So again, we have a couple of skinny, odd-shaped parcels there, but there has been some discussion about maybe using those parcels for horseshoe pits. So maybe there is some way to use those parcels and incorporate them into the park. Obviously, add some landscaping to them and make them usable, which again might be an argument for having the parking lot that we just talked about more in the western end of the pork chop part of the park. So that's one of the items regarding alignment number 1 and 1A. Alignment number 2 is kind of a combination of existing wall and alignment 1 and 1A. So in alternate number 2, we would follow wall alignment number A starting at the west end. So again, bringing that parcel into the city. It would jog as we got closer to the park, follow the existing park wall alignment until we get to Dysart, and then it would extend out towards Dysart and then follow the orange line down Dysart Road. So it gives you a good expansion of the park, especially in the west end or the east end, but it doesn't move the wall completely out to the street. A portion of the wall would go out to the street, but not all of it. And obviously there's sub options on all of these. We could move that jog point, to different locations. But anyway, that's alternate number 2. Alternate number 3 is kind of just, status quo. We don't do anything. We rebuild the wall in its exact location as it is today. Doesn't really gain us anything. but it does create more of a wall effect, to control access to the park and to the city itself in that location. Next slide. So this is just kind of a summary of those alternatives. Alternate one, I said, is the second largest expansion. We'd pick up just under an acre. It would have the second highest cost. It brings that irrigation pipe into the park. And I don't know to what extent the golf course owners would want to have some kind of an agreement to access the pipe. Since they don't really know where it is today, maybe that's not a big deal. It also brings that one parcel into the city that I talked about at the west end of the park. 1A gives us the biggest expansion, a little over an acre. It also would be the highest cost. It places the irrigation pipe again in the park with that potential issue and brings parcel 403H into the city. Next slide. Alternate 2 would be the third highest expansion. It gives us just a little over half an acre. Third highest cost, brings that parcel into the city, leaves the irrigation pipe outside of the park if that becomes an issue with the golf course owners. And it has minimal effect on the Goodyear Farms parcels. So those are basically, the next slide, please. Alternate 3 is just, building the wall where it is today, building a new wall. This wouldn't require any cooperation by Goodyear Farms, since we'd just be building it on the same alignment as it is today. This would be the lowest cost, least expansion, and leaves parcel 403H outside the city. Next slide. Now I want to talk a little bit about solid versus view. One of the nice things, next slide, one of the nice things about driving down Camelback Road, I think, is the view into the city that you get from Camelback Road, especially when you're westbound. You can look over and see into the golf course area. You can see the park. It gives a nice impression of the city, and it has some beautiful views, frankly. However, I've had at least one resident contact me about traffic noise and when are we going to build the wall? Extend the wall along Camelback Road. So it's really not up to me to decide this, but here's a suggestion. So you would start out with, again, starting at the west end, you'd start out with a solid wall that would help traffic noise for the people on the south side of Villanueva. Then you'd have a view section that would allow the views into the golf course area, and then a solid section to, again, help with traffic noise for the folks that live on the south side of Villanueva. And then the rest of it would be a view fence just to allow those views back into the park again, and from the park out as well. Just a suggestion, there's a lot of options in that one that I'd be happy to discuss. And then next slide, please. So here's our recommendation. So we should move ahead with acquiring those Goodyear Farms parcels. There's absolutely no reason why they would continue to own those parcels. If it's because of the irrigation pipe, we can give them an easement for that. We should expand Camelback Park, I think, with alternate 1 or 1A, which gives you the largest of the three options in terms of additional space. I think we should use a view wall, except where needed for traffic noise, because I know that is an issue for at least one resident that lives there. And we can continue the preliminary design of this wall using FY22 budgeted funds. But then, as the mayor indicated earlier, we probably need to bring this back as one of the capital projects and establish some priorities. We need to coordinate with the Wigwam golf owners to better locate their irrigation pipe. We've started that process, and maybe they should continue to do a good job of identifying the location of that pipe, because I'm sure we're going to need to know where it is when we go to build the wall. And we can start to develop a better cost estimate for the FY23 capital budget. Currently, it's budgeted at $830,000, but depending on what we do here, it could end up being as high as $1 million. And I think that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you for your staff report. Are there council comments? It looks like Vice Mayor. We need. Can we get the? Yeah, there you go. Full screen, perfect. I think I saw the Vice Mayor's hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I got 4 comments. The golf course water line there, it seemed like that would be, from Goodyear's standpoint, a no-brainer. They have a useless piece of property, it has no value. They're paying taxes on it. They stopped paying taxes. Before it would be deeded to us, they could do the work, create whatever kind of easement they think the golf course needs, and get that all done prior to it even being deeded to us. We don't have to mess with that, and they can all do what they think is best for them, as opposed to us trying to figure out how to give them an easement back after it was deeded to us. I mean, that can all be done beforehand. It'd be much simpler just to do that easement and then deed it to us subject to the easement. I lean toward taking into the fence as much property as possible and making that park as big as possible. It's a very, very well-used park. And that's the one thing we're known for. This is a long-term decision. It's going to outlast any of us on this council, or maybe even being alive. And so I'm really in favor of expanding that to that land. The land that Mayor, you've mentioned, maybe the Mavericks want to use for a Yates Memorial Park. I think it ought to be brought into this park and grassed and used by the kids and get a lot of use out of it. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, the way that corner is chopped off right there, we could put City of Litchfield Park just right there on that corner wall right there without building a monument or anything else like we've done on the other corners. It'd be very simple. It's just a matter of putting some letters on that corner. And we really do, well, I'm on that soapbox, we need to mark these entrances into the city so that the people know when they're coming into Litchfield Park, so that the citizens that live outside the park actually really find out that they really do live outside the park, and which helps our staff, with some of the questions and problems that they get, like on Litchfield Road and coming down Camelback. That's another story. The Mavericks, though, that project, I think is phenomenal. I just don't think this is probably the best place for it. Maybe the best place for it is to have them build something as part of our new downtown park, that they can put a plaque on it and say, they funded to build this clock tower, amphitheater, water fountain, whatever it might be, in as a memorial to Mike. And maybe that would be a better use of those funds, as to putting this out there where really there's nobody can get to this. We're going to put up a fence. There's no sidewalks. There's no way to get to this memorial thing here that would be safe. You can't park anywhere along there. And maybe we could get it someplace where a lot of people could see it, and it really would do what the Mavericks are trying to do. Or maybe it's something simple down into our Ramada Park. It's at the corner of Old Litchfield and Wigwam, where the Ramada is right there. But if they want to be part of the new park, I think that would be something fantastic. That's all I got. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Brainerd Watson.
Yeah, I'd like to tag on to some of what what Paul Faith has said, Vice Mayor Faith has said, excuse me. I wonder if locating that park there is a good idea, because I think that there's a lot of drainage there. Don't we have a kind of a drainage ditch that runs along the side there? that's, flood control type stuff?
It's possible.
There's quite a dip in it. I know that, and I know that it fills with water. So I'm not sure that that's a great location for that. And I agree with you. I'd like to see stuff commemorating someone inside a park where people can see it. That would be a total hazard to have to try and figure out how to get to it, to walk through and see whatever it is that's there. The second thought I had was if they're hell-bent on putting it in this park area, maybe that kind of difficult triangle or difficult long, narrow area on the west end might be a good location. And then people could have access to it. And then the third thought, and then I'll shut up, is I wonder if we need to know for sure where that irrigation pipe and its depth before we make a wall decision. Because if we don't know where it's located or how deep it is, it might impact what we're doing with locating our wall.
Any other comments from council? Councilman Stossy.
Just a couple quick comments. I agree with Paul. I'm a fan of making the park as big as we can, and basically using the fence to maximize the park, and it's really to mark the boundaries too. It seems like we have so much potentially going on with this park that it would make sense that what we talked about in the first part of this meeting and now kind of all go together, and we just have a big grand redesign and rethinking of how this park works with parking and fencing, et cetera. A holistic view, and maybe it incorporates what the Mavericks want to do, maybe not. And then my last comment would be, I'm just a big fan of the view wall and not the solid wall. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm done.
Other comments from council? Councilman Romack.
I missed that. Did Tom say you like the view wall or the solid wall?
He likes the view wall. Councilman Romack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would completely agree with Tom Stossy. I think this view wall, you can make the park as big as you can. Let's get Goodyear Farms out of here. Goodyear Tire and Rubber doesn't need to be a part of our community any longer. And I'm sure they would be happy to get rid of these parcels. So thank you.
Okay, appreciate all your comments, and we'll let Goodyear Farms know your thoughts on them specifically.
And then I have my hand up, can't see it, but this is very unusual.
Councilman Donahue with your hand up that we can't see.
It's very unusual for me, but let it go down on record that I concur and agree with both Councilman Stossy and Faith. And I too like the view wall. For me to agree with two men, that's big.
All righty. I actually am in agreement for the most part with the comments. I was one of the ones that was proposed the original view wall we built over at Turtle Park. I think the view wall over there was a great idea, and it is something that's beneficial for that park. I'm going to have to tell you though that in the meetings from one of the block watch groups that's most active in our city actually is based on Ora Vista there, and in many of those individuals that come to those meetings, Sunny and I have gone out there about every 6 months. Isn't that right, Sunny?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and a lot of the people there, their comment is they don't want to see a view fence along that section of the wall because they don't really want to look at the development that's over on the Denny's and the emergency room, and they seem to be in favor. More of them seem to be in favor of a more a solid wall. So I think we need to just make sure we understand what the neighbors in that area, what they're going to support. We had Dr. Charnetsky come in and plead with us to put in a solid wall right away because he was worried about the impact of the emergency room on that park and the neighbors. I don't know that we've really seen any significant impact. At least I'm not aware of any that has come from the emergency room. But I think the question of whether it's a view wall or a solid wall is just something we need to be cognizant of what the neighbors there want and what they will support, because it's the wall is mostly there to make their lives more enjoyable and cut down some of the noise from the traffic and some of the busy hustle and bustle that you get from Dysart Road and Camelback. So it's just a comment. I would think that it makes sense for staff. Again, I think this needs to go to RPG so you get their input. I think the comments in terms of the Mavericks Memorial area, Mr. City Manager, you need to take that back to Brian O'Connor and maybe Mike Hirth and let them know what the council's thoughts on it are, so that we can see if they're going to get serious about it. Then we can work. Maybe they can work through RPG and find a place within our current parks where it will make most sense for what they see as their vision. Is there anything else that staff wants or that staff needs from council to move forward on this project? I'm looking at where I can't see Woody. I lost him. There you.
Yeah, Mayor. No, I don't think so.
There
I think we've got plenty of direction. We just need to follow through on it.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Ms. Brandon Watson.
Sorry, last thought. I recently was at a city center in Duluth, Georgia, and they have a splash pad in the center of the city center. And all the way around it in bricks are bricks that have been donated, obviously as a fundraiser by different family members. And that might be something that when you go to the Mavericks, you talk to them about. Maybe they might want to, as a group, take on something like the splash pad and then reach out to the community and see if the community wants to donate, because a lot of people knew Mike and really cared for him. Maybe they might want to expand it beyond just the Maverick group.
Okay, good thought that the city manager can take back to Mr. O'Connor. Anything else? Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the agenda, but let me take a quick look. It does.
Adjourn.
So we are going to adjourn without a vote because it doesn't say that I need to ask your permission to adjourn. So we're going to adjourn this meeting and go on to our council meeting. Does anyone on the council, would you like a few minutes before we start the council meeting? Yes. Okay, my clock says that it's 7:02, so we'll gavel the council into session at 7:10. Okay, with that, we're adjourned. Okay, it is now 7:10. Do we have the council back in attendance? Looks like the vice mayor is here, Council Romack, Stosey's here, Lisa Brainerd Watson's here. And Councilman Donahue, are you here? Are you here, Councilman Donahue?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm going to call this meeting to order. Councilman Romack, how would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? You have to unmute.
All right, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Good job, Councilman Romack.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we'll go on to the councilman reports. We'll start with Councilman Rostosi.
Nothing to report, sir.
Okay, Councilman Romack.
I want to thank everybody involved, as I mentioned earlier, for the groundbreaking this morning. It was delightful. I was glad to see a lot of old friends and some new faces. Also, I thank the police department for their higher profile in our community, because I do think that it is absolutely making a difference. And so other than that, I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Donahue.
I follow what John said. Kudos to Avondale. I mean, I've seen them outside by the preschool classes. I've seen them. They're just awesome. They're everywhere by the rec center and so forth, and so approachable and just awesome. So kudos to them. Nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Brainerd Watson.
I got to chime in with the exact same comment, because I can't tell you how many people have approached me and said they're pleased with our decision. So kudos as well. And thank you to everybody involved in making this morning very memorable. It was a nice experience.
And Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just thank you to the mayor and the staff with the groundbreaking. I think this morning went great. It was actually kind of nice to see all the council again face to face, in the crowd out there this morning. So someday we'll get back to having real meetings, but it was nice seeing you all again.
I absolutely agree. It was nice seeing all the council in person once again. I'm disappointed that we weren't able to have this meeting in person, but with the change in positivity rates and this Delta virus, it seemed like the wiser thing to do to continue it for at least another meeting and maybe a couple meetings, depending upon how this progresses. I also saw the leadership from the Avondale Police Department at the groundbreaking and told them that I echoed everything that you've said this evening, that they have been doing a great job. Their reports are really interesting in terms of the things that they have come across and the number of stops they've made for for investigative purposes. So I also gave them high marks and told them thank you for the city and the council. So with that, we'll go on to, I think we have a report maybe from Nancy Schaefer from Litchfield Park Historical Society. Yes, I don't see her on here.
She did not respond to me, Mayor, so I don't believe we do.
So we may not have a report. That's fine.
Correct.
So we'll go to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll skim through. I know we have a busy agenda tonight. You do have the report in your packet. It is for 2 months. A few high points I'll hit on. One, as you know, of course, mass grading for Litchfield Square has begun. We did shut them down this morning for dust issues, but they do have that project underway and making good progress there. Staff is currently awaiting a proposal for the storm drain repair / sinkhole on Village Parkway. That's there near Lepo Park. Depending on how the bid comes in on that, we may end up go ahead and moving ahead with that and bringing that for ratification at the October meeting. Again, all depends where it falls money wise, but we do need to get that done. So just be aware of that. You remember the issue with the construction sales tax last year. After we went through that, Paige suggested we find an auditor to look into that more and see what else we were missing. And he actually found a building sale that owed us a $100,000 payment that had not been reported. So we did receive that. So thanks for that auditor and prepared suggesting that his audit fee was $2,000. So we made a nice $98,000 profit off that. So nice turnout for us on that. Staff has also done the asset tagging of all IT equipment. One thing we were just discussing, I have met with Brian O'Connor recently about the Maverick Park concept that the mayor was discussing. And Woody and myself will be meeting with him hopefully sometime next week. We did receive no bids, unfortunately, on the marketing RFP we put out for Litchfield Square. I have reached out to companies to find out why, just to be honest, why we didn't receive any bids on that. We have made some changes to that RFP, and it will be being issued again next week. We also have some other companies we'll be sending that to. Just for clarification, that RFP is for both marketing and brokerage services for Litchfield Square. We have discussed a flexible telecommuting policy that did begin this week to allow eligible employees to telecommute 1 day per week. That did begin this week. That is something that's becoming more and more standard in the COVID work world. Most of the cities in the valley are doing 2, we're doing 1. It's just something to do to keep us competitive. If all the other cities are doing it, it's awfully hard not to, especially as we try to hire department head employees. You may have seen we did receive our census results. We came in at 6,847, up from 5,476 in 2010. So we're pretty close growth-wise with Tolleson, with Youngtown. We're pretty close with those as far as their rate of growth. You may have seen Goodyear and Buckeye are 2 of the fastest growing cities in the nation. It's a very busy time in the West Valley. That would be all the points I had to hit on. As always, I welcome any questions if you should have any.
Okay, questions from council? I don't see any, so we'll move on. Thank you for your report, Mr. City Manager. Good job.
Thank you, sir.
It takes us to our presentations section. First presentation is on our new employees. Mr. City Manager.
Excuse me, Mayor.
I'm sorry, did I miss something?
Yes, response to call to community and call to community.
I'm sorry, I skipped that. So there were no individuals who spoke to us at last meeting's call to committee, so there is no response. Do we have any requests to speak at this meeting?
No, sir.
Okay. Then we will go on now to presentations. And Mr. City Manager, you're going to introduce some new employees.
Yes, sir, be glad to. Mayor and Council, we've been hiring several new employees over the last month. We're very happy with who we received so far. First of all is Raina. Raina is our new code enforcement officer. She's doing a great job. Glad to have her with us. And she seems to be putting some fire in that position and enjoying being there. So we're very glad to have her here.
Very happy to be here.
Thank you. I was going to say she is on the call if you want to introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, I've been with the city for about a month and I have no complaints. I am loving it so far. Definitely a full plate right now, but we're getting there.
Thank you, Raina. We appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to the city.
I appreciate it.
We also have Elise with us. Elise is our new HR assistant in the HR department. Susan, is she on the call? There you are. Elise, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Elise. I am excited to be a part of this team and be a part of the city that I love.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
And last but not least is Ralph Cortina, who's recently joined the Public Works Department. Ralph, I know I saw you earlier. Are you still on here with us? He was here. He may be gone now, but if you're gone, we're glad to have you here, sir. That was it, Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. The next item of business is to recognize the employee of the quarter. Once again, and without making this like a broken record, this is one of the most important things we do as council is to recognize these employees. They're chosen by their fellow employees as being the most outstanding of our associates throughout the quarter. This quarter is Kyle Ames, who is the Deputy Director of Public Works. We have a certificate for Kyle and a gift card. And I'm not sure, where is Kyle's gift card? What did he choose? Do we know, Miss City Clerk?
Mr. Ames chose 8 hours of vacation as his gift.
8 hours of what?
Vacation?
Vacation. That's a nice gift card. All right, good choice. We'll have to see when we can schedule that in. All right. I don't know if he's here or not. I can't tell from all of my little squares. It doesn't.
No, he's not attending.
Okay, well, let him know how much we appreciate his good works and how proud we are that he was voted by his fellow employees as the employee of the quarter.
Will do.
Okay, next item is a Litchfield Little League. It says a proclamation. We have a plaque. Do we have a proclamation also? Let's see. Let's see if my little paper clips work. We do have a proclamation. The proclamation is in your packet. It recognizes the Little League Team 11U for having won the state championship in Little League. I'm not going to read the entire proclamation, but I think the council, and hopefully the Little League knows how much the city supports the Little League, and we have supported the Little League for many, many years. It's a very important activity for the youth, both in the city and in the areas surrounding Litchfield Park. We're very proud of the way that the Little League, Litchfield Park Little League, represents the city, and we appreciate all the time that the volunteers give so that the Little League is able to function and do well. I also have a plaque, and I don't know, does that come up later in the agenda?
No.
So it comes up at this point.
Yes. And Coach Butterfield is on the call as well.
Yeah. I think we made an executive decision that Coach Butterfield was going to pronounce all of the names that are associated with this plaque, but I do want to hold this plaque up. I don't know if you can see this one. I can't tell. This isn't working well, but it's a nice plaque. It will be displayed in the city. It says the Arizona State Champion 2021 11U Little League District 2 champions, and it lists a variety of the players on the team and their numbers, their managers, their coaches, and it has pictures on it that I think all of you will enjoy. So we will probably display this at City Hall as soon as I can get it back to City Hall from my house. So with that, we have Coach, is it Coach Butterfield that's here? Yes?
Yes. Michael Butterfield. I'm also the president of Litchfield Park Little League. Thank you for having me here today and recognizing this great team. They were outstanding all summer long. Lucky enough to win state in Litchfield Park at Litchfield Elementary School. So that was really excited for all them. The roster this season, most of, if not all of them, have played in Litchfield Park Little League their whole careers, and probably at Litchfield Rec Center with flag football, soccer, all the above. So starting off, we had Peyton Burgess, Ethan Butterfield, Cole Cassidy, Court Galbraith, Titan Jacobs, Angelo Magianis, Connor Mankey, Maddox Murray, Mason Paufenbarger, Jax Pryor, Nathan Shaw, Mikey Stortz, Landon Swinehart, Chase Valdez. And then myself, I was the manager of the team. My coaches were John Jacobs, Cade Shaw, Michael Murray, and Matt Pryor.
Congratulations for a great season. One of the things that is displayed on this plaque is that your record was 9-1, and your combined score was 163-18. So it looks like you had a powerhouse run production team and also a great defensive team. So it's no wonder that you won the state championship.
Yeah, they played outstanding. They really dominated at the state level, and hopefully they'll all come back next season, and maybe Litchfield Park will be on ESPN.
Well, that would be even greater.
Hey, Mayor, this is Ann. Hey, I just want to say, Mr. Butterfield, that I was actually at that final game. My son lives right across the street. He's like, "You got to see this, Mom." And thank heaven for the run rule. But holy moly, yeah, as the mayor said, you guys won by like 20 runs. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're outstanding, and they're a great group of kids. I mean, they're really the best.
Just one question for something that was asked to me, and I didn't know the answer of it, the answer for it. And that is, I understand that you played the championship game at the elementary school, which is, it's a nice field there. I'm curious if there was any consideration to using the Jackie Robinson field that was put in over on Camelback.
Yeah, so we were actually asked to host the entire state tournament for this age group. And we started to work out the details to try to host some of the games at Jackie Robinson, but we moved away from it because we would need 2 sets of volunteers because we needed 2 fields to be going at the same time for the entire tournament. And also we couldn't get around the light limit, like the time limit on the lights. For Little League state championship tournament games, there is no time limit. They have to be completed. And there were a few days that week of the tournament that we were out there pretty significantly late with the lights on, probably closer to 11 o'clock-ish, just because of the games and how close they were, or because of rain delays and things like that.
Okay, well, I appreciate your answer. I can give it now to people who ask me. Again, congratulations for a great season, and let the kids know that we're very proud of them.
Thank you so much. I will let them know. Hopefully some of them are on the call today. I know that a lot of them are at practice though for their different teams now.
Okay, good job. See if I can get this. My little paper clips don't work on this computer, so we're going to have to jump around a little bit here. Next presentation is from Paige for the Government Finance Officer's Certificate of Achievement. Paige.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to briefly let you all know that we did receive our Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the GFOA, and I just wanted to express my appreciation to the staff and all the departments for all their contribution to make this happen. So that was it.
Yeah, congratulations to your department, and keep up the good work. We are proud of the fact that our books and records are kept in such fine condition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is there's a proclamation for National School Lunch Week. It's in your packet. I'm not going to read the entire proclamation here again. Obviously, the school lunches are an incredibly important part of what the elementary school provides to many of the kids that live in and around Litchfield Park. I know that at the Litchfield Elementary School, a significant number of the kids utilize their breakfast program and their lunch program, and I'm sure it provides a significant part of the nutrition that those children receive, over the course of the day. So we obviously all miss Mr. Schwacke. He was the director of food at Litchfield Elementary for many years and was a very big proponent of the school lunch program. So we want to, obviously remember him and pay our respects to all the work that he did to make sure that our kids had good, nutritious food through their elementary years. I don't know if there are any comments from council. If there aren't, then we'll move on to the next proclamation. It is a proclamation that concerns domestic violence. It is trying to make everyone aware of the fact that domestic violence is a significant problem in our society, and one that we need to be on the watch for. Many times its victims are they're not able, or they're not strong enough to be able to come and make a complaint. And so we need to keep an eye out for our friends to make sure that we don't have any issues going on either in our family or our friends that may need to have something addressed because of a concern about potential domestic violence. Again, it is a very important issue within our society, and one that we take very seriously, and we want to make sure that there is a real awareness by the council and by our residents that it is a significant issue. So the proclamation is in your packet. We'll go on to our reports section. We have a report from Goodyear Fire Department. My note says Chief Luizzi is here. I don't know if, yep, there he is. Nice to see you, Chief.
You guys as well. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just compliment to the Mayor and Council and staff on the groundbreaking today. I thought that was a great event. So looking forward to the progress on that project. So today we're going to talk about July and August calls for service. So in July, we had 47 total calls for service. 40 of those were EMS related, so about 85%. And then we had calls at Las Cruces and La Loma. And so we still continue to actively track those and also communicate with staff that is at those two respective places to ensure they are using 911 for the most appropriate of reasons. And then in August, we actually had a pretty busy month, 63 calls for service. 49 of those were EMS, so about 78%. And again, calls at Las Cruces and La Loma. So pretty much in about the same amount as they were in July. But again, we continue to have ongoing conversations with that staff at both of those facilities. So there's really nothing else that was outstanding or of particular interest, unless council has a question for me.
Questions by council? I don't see any. Chief, thank you for coming and giving us your report. We also appreciate the fact that you came to our groundbreaking. Thank you. And if being no questions, then please tell your firemen that we appreciate their service to our community. You guys do a good job.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Okay, takes us now to the Avondale Police report. I think we have Chief Espinoza with us.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me. As we take a look at the police activity report, I was hoping that we could go over some of the details as how we capture our stats, just because we do capture different stats compared to MCSO. So if I can have you turn to page 3 of 4 of the activity report. If I can have you look at the column to the left, which would be the July 2021 stats, you will see that we had a total number of calls at 336. It is important that you know out of the 336, 221 of those calls were self-initiated calls for service, meaning that the officers responded to an observation they made versus an observation or a call from a citizen. That means that about 65% of the calls that you see there are initiated by our staff. The definition of a self-initiated call for service could be a suspicious person, a suspicious activity, an unsecured premise where the officers see this and they take the initiative to open a call for service and deal with that call for service. So I just wanted to make sure that that was cleared. I don't want anybody to panic with the large number of calls for service, but again, 65% of our calls for July were self-initiated by our staff. For the month of August, you see a total of 325 calls for service. 211 out of the 325 were officer-generated calls for service. If my math is correct, that is about 64% of the calls for service. Again, officer-initiated calls for service could be a traffic stop, again, an unsecured premise or whatnot. Some of the significant calls for service that we took in July, the very first call that we took was an ongoing investigation of a theft of 5 tractors or gators from the wigwam. Our staff was able to reopen that case, and working with our undercovers, we were able to follow a good lead that led to 4 of the 5 gators being recovered. and returned to the Wave 1 resort. We do have a suspect. However, we did serve 2 search warrants trying to locate this individual, the suspect. However, he fled to California. Our staff is working with the county attorney's office. We're trying to get an extradition warrant to get him into our state and so that he can answer to those charges. Another significant call for service that we took in August, it would have been August 27th. We did take a bank robbery at the Compass Bank at Dysart and India School. Our staff, along with the FBI and Glendale PD, have a very strong lead, and they're working on that case. I hope that next month when we meet, I have good news for you all. At this point, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions for anyone.
Okay, questions or comments from the council? Councilman Romack.
You're muted, sir.
There we go. Again, thank you for all the work you do in our community. I really appreciate it. And I know everyone, all the citizens here do. I want to ask, not too long ago, we installed a number of cameras at most of the entrances and exits to our city. And I don't see any report on that or any relevance to that in your report. And I would like to know if that's something, A, that you actively monitor, and B, if we can get a little bit more reporting on how those cameras are doing.
Thank you, Councilmember Romack. The cameras are doing wonders for us. If you take a look at page 2 of 4, you'll see the column titled Stolen License Plates Recovery. Those 4 license plates that were stolen from our citizens were recovered due to the cameras. So the way the cameras work for us is we have department issue cell phones assigned to the officers. And as soon as a vehicle crosses into Litchfield Park or out of Litchfield Park, and let's say the vehicle is either stolen or has a stolen license plate, the officer within 30 seconds gets a notification, a direction of travel, and that's done wonders. Within minutes, the officers have located the vehicles and done traffic stops and addressed the issues. So yes, 4 of the 3 in July and 1 in August.
Great, that's good to hear. Thank you for that report. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Don't see any. Hopefully you heard the comments that were made earlier by many of our council members of all the good reports we've gotten from our citizens on how happy people are with the work that your officers are doing in our community. I am very, very pleased. It's nice to see the police car, the Tahoe, around. It was an unusual event in the past to see the MCSO car, and now it's become a usual event to see your officers doing their work. So please pass on that we're very pleased with their with what they've done for us, and if there's anything they need from us, please let us know.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate it, and our philosophy is very simple. We understand we work for you and your team, and if we need to make adjustments, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to do so.
I am very happy to report that I have not received even one negative comment. Excuse me, one negative comment about your officers or the job that they're doing. So it always is, certainly something that I was aware there might be issues within the community where people saw the change in the way the law was being enforced, or the more active presence of the law enforcement officers, and we might hear something about it, but I can tell you I've heard nothing negative. It's all of the comments I've received have all been positive. So your officers are doing a good job.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to, looks like we have staff reports, finance monthly report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to share my screen. I wanted to give an update on fiscal year 21. We finished posting transactions about 2 weeks ago, so I wanted to give an update on where we ended the year. I just do want to point out that this is an unaudited report and our audit begins next week, so there could be some slight changes to these numbers, but I don't anticipate anything significant. So our revenues as a whole came in at 112%. We had some that were over, some that were under, but in total, 12% over budget, so we did really well. Rec was at 53% and special events were at 88%. So the details of that are included in your packet, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of those specific items. The general fund expenses by department as a whole, we came in at 89%. So in total, our revenue over expenses was just under $3.7 million. So we had very, very good year. Our construction sales tax, which we consider one-time revenues to pay for one-time expenses, came in at 1.4. Our capital expenses were 1.7. So the net of that was a negative 355. So we had to use some of our operating revenue to cover that difference. But we ended up with a fund balance of $16.3 million. These next two pages are the details of rec and special events, so I'll just skip through those, but happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. And then our special revenue funds, our annual HERF revenue came in just right at budget. Our HERF expenses, we spent $636,000. So that left an ending balance of $1.1 million in the HERF fund. Then our streetlight improvement districts, we had a negative net $3,800, but that was by design because we had too much cash in those funds. So we lowered the property tax levy slightly, and now we're at a more reasonable fund balance of $15,700. The court enhancement revenue posted of $4,400, so that leaves an ending balance of $195,000. So our fund balance summary in total, if you include the general fund and our special revenue funds, the city has is at $18.3 million. Of course, 1.9 is restricted for those special revenue funds, so that leaves the general fund with 16.3 or 22 months worth of expenditures. Unfortunately, that construction tax refund that we have been talking about for several months now, it still hasn't. I was hoping it would post by the end of June so it could be essentially off the books. But I did contact DOR and they're in the process of auditing all of these reports, and it's taking some time. So that refund still hasn't posted as of today.
What is the amount of that refund expected to be?
About $800,000.
So it will reduce our fund balance down to about $15,500,000.
Correct.
Just a comment. Obviously we've had another good year, and we have significant surplus that we're in the process of spending on the city center and other capital programs. But I want to make sure that staff understands the priority of, whenever possible, using those HERF monies to pay for appropriate expenses, as opposed to using the general fund to pay for those same expenses. So we end up minimizing the restricted amounts that are in our funds and maximizing the amount that's unrestricted. So if there's more things that can be categorized for HERF, then we want to spend the HERF money on it, not general fund money.
Definitely, thank you. If there's no questions on last year's report, for this fiscal year, I'll have a complete report for the first quarter next month, but I did have just a sales tax update so you can see where we're at the first 2 months of the year. Our retail sales this August over last August are actually down 9%. But as you can see, our online sales are up 42%. I think a lot of the online sales last year were reported in the retail category. And then this time last year was still a lot of the overbuying. So I think for a few months, we're actually going to see a decrease in our retail over the prior fiscal year. But I was really happy to see our restaurant and bars were up 53%. So that's even well above 2019. Utilities are up 21. And now we had an anomaly this month. Matthew mentioned it in his report, that $100,000 that the auditors found. That came in July, and it was posted in the rentals category. So we had a huge increase of about 350% last month. However, they reported it in the wrong category, so they took it back out of the rentals, and they actually remitted it in the construction sales tax. So it's skewing our rentals. Next month that will smooth out, and we did receive it. It's in this construction tax total. So as you can see, our change from 2020 to 21 is down 8%, but that's because a big reason of that is that correction there. And then our construction sales tax had that huge increase because of that sale. And then we also received a $400,000 spec sale that I didn't anticipate or include in the budget. So construction sales tax is already doing much better than we had anticipated. And that's all I have, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Don't see any. I would ask the city manager to coordinate a meeting between the finance department and engineering department when we have enough information that we can look at our CIP programs that are outside of the city center spending that we're already committed to, so that we can take a look and actually set some priorities within the things that we have listed as our CIP program. Because I think when we went through those in the budgeting process, we didn't really spend the time as a council and try to prioritize each of those projects in terms of when we would actually try to get them spent.
Agreed. Thank you, sir.
A work study, a work study session, but not scheduled until you have enough information so we can actually make some decisions.
Be glad to.
Okay, thank you. Next item is then the city center update. Mr. Scouten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just a few items to touch on. As you know, mass grading is underway. They've got the big equipment out there and starting to move a lot of dirt. We continue to work with Liberty Utilities on the water system. They're out there helping us locate the existing mains and to make adjustments to the system so that we can do what we need to do to expand into the city center. Some good news, Southwest Gas has moved up their schedule for the work on that 12-inch main that they're going to be putting in Litchfield Road. They're now saying that they're going to start in October, which would then allow us an earlier start for all of the Litchfield Road improvements, including the roundabout. We're working on incorporating electric vehicle charging stations into the parking areas, the surface parking areas, as well as future charging stations in the parking garages if we build the parking garages. So that is being incorporated into the APS design right now. And then I'd just like to congratulate everybody on a great groundbreaking ceremony today. It was a lot of fun for me, and it was a good time to connect with some of the residents that I haven't seen for a while. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, any questions from council? All right, thank you for your report, Mr. City Engineer. Next item is a final report from the Crane Plume. Maybe it would be a good idea, at least, and I don't know that we need to go through the report, but Mr. City Manager, maybe you can explain the status of our relationship with the consultant.
Absolutely. Mayor and council, we discussed this a few months ago, that this issue has been pretty stable for a while. at some point we had worked it out with the company to attend these meetings to be involved. But after discussions with Woody, we didn't feel like that was needed anymore. We felt like the current city engineer and incoming engineer could certainly handle those issues. However, before we ended that agreement, that was a partnership with that company and also the city of Avondale. We did reach out to Avondale to see if they want to do their own agreement separately with that company, and they were happy to do that. So we have since ended that relationship with the company that was doing the testing, and now Woody's attending those meetings, and Avondale is pursuing their own deal with them. So I think it's a good deal for us. Woody, would you have more comments you'd like to add to that?
No, not really, except that all of the meetings are currently virtual. So, you know, it's easy to attend them.
Just one question for you. Do we have a process so that our well at the lake is tested periodically to make sure that we don't see anything, coming up, or see something change?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I did go back and review how often that lake well has been tested in the past, and we will have a test coming up next spring. And I'll work with Richard to schedule that test. And of course, we'll have to organize a relationship with a lab in order to do the testing, but that's easy enough to do.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Woody, the information that we get for the last, many years on the crane plume, with the testing of the wells and all that stuff that goes on a regular basis, the monitoring wells, the cleanup, all that kind of stuff, that's all still being done, I presume, by Crane in the same reports and stuff, and you're getting that and looking at that. So yeah, we're not stopping any kind of real review or anything. You're getting that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, the whole idea was that some years ago we thought our lake well was threatened with the advance of the plume. That's now been controlled and it's stabilized, and there's no real threat to the lake well anymore as long as Crane and EPA continue to do the things that they're doing now with extraction wells and recharge wells and so on, treatment of the water. So that's my main job now, is to monitor that and to make sure that they continue doing those things to control that northern expansion of the plume. They're also heavily focused on the southern area down around Van Buren Street and near the source of the original pollution. And that's where they're now talking about doing some cleanup down in that area. But the northern end up by us is under control, and I'm just monitoring that to make sure it stays that way.
I think it would be helpful, at least to me, maybe as you attend those meetings and you see maybe some 2-page summaries as to what's going on, if those can maybe work their way into our packets so we could see it and continue to kind of monitor it ourselves and assist you with that to see what's going on. This thing kind of snuck up on us when it happened the first time because Crane wasn't doing a lot. And so we got involved with the state and the EPA, ADEQ, basically raising hell that something needed to be done because it was creeping toward our well. And I don't want to get in a situation where nobody knows what's going on. I mean, if you get replaced by the new guy or something at some point, we still maybe need to have a system where these things kind of go into a packet so that we're all kind of watching it and helping each other keep an eye on it.
Okay. Yeah, it's easy enough to do from the reports that I get from Crane and the overall project manager that is helping EPA with the project.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking. Just, there's got to be some one-page summaries that come out in these meetings or something. They can just get stuck in our reports. We can just see that this thing is continuing to progress positively because it's going to last a jillion years.
It is, yes. This is one of those never-ending projects.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, Seeing none, we'll go on to our consent agenda. Item number 9, we have consent items A through L. Is there any member of the council that would like to take any of these items A through L off of the consent agenda for discussion?
Item F.
Item F. Who asked for that? Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor asked for item F. All right. Anything else? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda items A through E and G through L?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Sosi, seconded by Councilman Romack. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda items A through E and G through L are adopted. Mr. Vice Mayor, your question about item number F that you would like to have more information on?
Yes, thank you. And if this is in there and I missed it, I apologize. The packet was 524 pages, so I read through everything. But as I looked at the contracts and stuff in there, I saw nothing that said what manufacturer there was going to be of these units, whether they're cheap ones or good ones. I saw nothing about the SEER ratings to see what the energy efficiency is of the new ones and the ones that we have. I saw that some of these units are like 9 years old, and somebody seems to think maybe they've reached the end of their useful life. I usually get about 18 years out of a unit before I'm forced to replace the darn thing. And then I saw that we only have a 1-year warranty, where most manufacturers give a 5-year warranty on the air compressor, the compressors of the units. And then I saw where we're paying $10,000 a piece for 3.5-ton units. And John, you helped back me up on that. That seems a little high for a 3.5-ton unit replacement. And so I'm struggling with why we're doing this right now. Maybe somebody can help me out.
Sure thing, Vice Mayor. Richard, are you on the call?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
If you don't mind, sir.
Yes. So good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. So this was an item that was brought to our attention for a capital improvement. And with these 4 AC units, the problem has been these AC units, as you know, during the summer work very hard. And we've spent time and money in repairs, and these units seem to break down at the worst times possible, normally during the peak use of the rec center. And so we started looking into having these replaced. We've had the companies, we've had multiple HACI come out to do some of the repairs, as well as a few other companies to do the repairs. And again, we've had multiple repairs doing it when they break down. So we just started looking into getting these units replaced as a whole, kind of like updating it. And from some of the information that was brought to my attention, it was normally you'd get about 10 years worth of use out of some of these units. And I agree, it could go longer, as long as much as 18 years. I guess that'd be a pretty good unit there. And the manufacturer would be trained for all 4 units. What this price does include as well is inside, above the men's restroom inside that rec center, there's that's part of the split unit there. This company would need to go in there and take apart that unit, bring it down, and if it were to go through, piece by piece, put it together through that access point back up into the attic there. So that's kind of where we were at. Again, we were looking into it because of the age and the repairs and the maintenance, the units breaking down at the worst possible times.
Richard, wasn't there an issue with them not carrying the Freon anymore? Wasn't there something about that?
Yes, sir. So one of the 4 units. The 10-ton is the, what is it, the R22, which in return, the R22 is more expensive. And this comes from all the companies. It should be, they should be getting rid of it, kind of phasing it out. They've already been doing it as far as what I know. R410 is what they're going to now for all units. So 3 of the 4 units do currently have the 410. Any other questions, or I'm hoping I'm answering some of these questions for Vice Mayor.
What's the SEER rating of the current units and the new units?
So the SEER rating, that would be some information I would need to find out and get back with you. I currently don't have the SEER ratings for the old units.
If we've got, I mean, these are only 9 years old. They're probably 14, 16 SEER, probably 14 SEER maybe. You know, if we're going to 16, 18, maybe there's enough savings there to make this worth replacing them early, but yeah, I don't know.
Richard, what type of things have been going wrong with these units? What have the service requirements been?
So they go out as far as not blowing cold anymore, particularly for the preschool. Belt changes, condensers, coils blowing out, you know, at random times. So not only is the, you know, lobby affected by this, I think our last blowout was in July, and the copper tubing there had just, you know, there's about a 1/4 inch hole that just kind of blew out. So those are the kind of the issues that we've been dealing with. So as a staff, when we were looking into it, you know, along with the rec center staff, it just seemed like the time, you know, budgeted, and again, with all the maintenance issues and the cost, you know, felt it was time to maybe kind of upgrade, make them all uniform. Train seems to be a reputable company there. And hopefully we can eliminate some of these problems at the peak use. You know, again, these machines are working hard, you know, running 72 degrees most of the time at the high peak of summer. And there's really no telling when these machines go down for any kind of repairs.
These base bids, when it says that it's $9,000 for a 3-ton unit, does that include installing the unit, all the labor that, you know, that's involved in putting the unit in, or is that just the unit cost, equipment cost?
So the 9,000 is for the single bid, for like if we were to get one unit itself, that would be the single price cost for, again, the crane, the labor, everything that kind of goes along with the install.
Okay, because the reason I ask is I just bought a 3.5-ton crane or train unit,
Yes.
and it was about $3,500. But that's just the equipment, not the installation, not getting it to my house, none of that. So.
Yeah, there's quite a bit that goes into it. Again, some of these 3 tons, 2.5 tons, you know, you may find them a lot cheaper in you know, Lowe's or other.
I bought mine directly from Train, so
okay.
I probably got about as good a price as you're going to get, you know, buying it. I should buy a bunch of them, I guess. So,
Yeah, and
the pricing doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem way out of line, because it involves, you're going to have profit on top of the $3,000 or $3,500 that you buy the unit from Train anyway, plus all the cost of the time and putting it in and doing the installation. So it doesn't seem like it's a crazy price. It may be higher than what you'd like to pay, but it doesn't seem totally out of line to me. You have any additional questions, Mr. Vice Mayor?
No, Mayor.
So is there, I'm sorry, is there someone else? I'm sorry, Councilman Brainer Watson.
I had an experience with the older AC unit where we had difficulty getting the Freon, And Richard, you mentioned that the R22 is going away. Any idea when that will be?
You know what? I do not.
Because I'm worried that we might have a Freon issue and no longer be able to get the Freon to fix it.
Yes, and this
No,
is and with the 10-ton, they're looking to. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So, from the techs and the companies that we've been speaking to, they're looking to phase it out, and until it's phased out, the refrigerant is going to be more expensive than the R410. So I couldn't give you an exact time or an estimated time of when they're going to exactly phase it out all the way. It seems like they've been talking about it for quite a few years, from what I read up on.
And what we found was that refrigerant was significantly more expensive.
And when I just went through this with the units that I replaced, and that the old refrigerant, the differential in cost is between 5 and 8 times more expensive for the old versus the new. So it gets very expensive, and you can find it, but it's not as readily available.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Romack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Richard, is this through the buying group that we're a part of, or is this just an outside bid?
This is a co-op, a cooperative bid.
Okay, because I agree with Paul. This $9,000 seems like it's a pretty aggressive pricing, but we need to get rid of that R22. I would agree with that, but that's pretty aggressive.
I can understand your guys' concerns. Again, the only thing I could say is, this is the cost of, kind of doing business. Again, we're talking 4 units here. We're talking a crane coming in to place these on the rooftops. You're looking at a 3x3 entry point into the men's restroom, basically in the rec center, where these guys would do minimal damage. The roof would not, the ceiling or the roof would not have to be taken apart in order for this to be replaced. Again, the belts, they go out a lot. The Freon tends to go out in these areas, which two of these areas have IT equipment that needs to consistently stay cool. And then you have the preschool, where that needs to stay cool while school's in session. But again, we're looking at crane use, we're looking at techs to come in, and we're talking 4 units.
The alternative, Councilman Romack, is we would have to go through and draw up a bid and go out on the street and bid this. Just the cost for us to put it on the street is significant. And it's not free for us to go out and do a bid between the staff time and just the whole process that we go through. So you have to take that into account also. At the end of the day, I don't think there's a whole lot of money to be saved on this.
And just to kind of go off the point, by doing it as a package, we're saving $3,212 versus if we did them separately, paying them out individual, doing it at separate times. So just wanted to kind of point that out as well.
So about 7% less than these standalone prices.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any further discussion? Is there a motion to approve the purchase of these units in accordance with the consent item 9F?
So moved.
It's been moved by, who moved it? Councilman Brandon Watson? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Donahue. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
So we have, looks like 4 ayes. Is that correct? Councilman Brainerd Watson, and Councilman Romack, and Rostosi, and Councilman Donahue, and the mayor. So there we have 5 ayes. All those voting no, please signify by saying no.
No.
So
I just like the record to show my explanation that I think our staff needs to do a little better job going out and working some of these small bids like this, because I think we're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Okay, so noted. We'll make sure the minutes of the meeting reflect that, specifically, Ms. City Clerk. So with that, we'll move on to the business agenda. Item 10, first item is a public hearing on a liquor license application. So I will open the public hearing and note the hammer. The hammer has come down, Mr. Estes. Public hearing is open. Do we have a staff report, Ms. City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor and Council, staff received an application from Mr. Morales, the owner of Alabrejas Cafe and Grill, for an interim and new Series 12 liquor license. The location is at the former La Loma Mexican Grill up on Camelback and Dysart. Law requires the property be posted for at least 20 days. It was posted August 20th, which is more than what is required. Council's not asked to approve or deny, but make a recommendation to approve, not approve, or make no recommendation. The staff recommends approving. The applicant was here earlier this evening, but he had another appointment he had to go do, so he's left the call.
Okay, are there any questions from council?
Terry, was that Gilberto?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just wondering.
All right, is there any member of the public that has any questions concerning this item?
Staff did not receive any pros or cons for the application.
All right. Seeing that there are no comments from council or from the public, we're going to close the public hearing. And we'll go down to item number B, which is discussion and possible recommendation to the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control regarding the Series 12 interim and new application for, we're going to just say Gilbert at 4900 North Litchfield Road, Building B. Is there a motion to recommend approval of this license request? Moved by Councilman Romack, seconded by, wasn't sure who was that, Vice Mayor. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll send in a statement of recommending approval. Now we'll go on to item C, which is resolution CFD 21-01, ordering and declaring the formation of the Litchfield Square Community Facilities District. Mr. Estes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What we have before you is the resolution for the formation of the CFD that the council authorized the petition to be filed for Litchfield Square. And that's what you see before you with this resolution 21-01.
Okay, are there any questions from council concerning the declaring of the formation of the CFD for Litchfield Square? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt resolution CFD 21-01, ordering and declaring the formation of the Litchfield Square Community Facilities District?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Watson. Is there a second? Second from Councilman Romack. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of declaring the CFD, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Next item of business is the Litchfield Square bond. Mr. Williams.
Mayor and council, this is the bond we've been working on some time, as you know. Very much the high points on this bond is, of course, for the $15 million for City Center. In addition to that, it is a bond to refinance our existing $2.3 million bond. We do have Mark Reeder and his staff on the line if you have any questions for them tonight. There's a lot of documents in your council packet that reflect this. I would, as far as the numbers, if you flip to page 365 in your packet. And what that is, of course, is the payment schedule. Again, for the first 5 years, we're paying interest only on Litchfield Square. Those are about $500,000 a year. After that, we begin paying principal. During that same time period, we're going to be having the existing refinancing. The existing refinancing will go from 2021 and sunset in 2030. So the total payments between Litchfield Square and the existing bond in the next few years will be in the 800s, then the 900s. You may have seen in my council communication, I did break those out per session. Give me 1 second, I'll go back to that. For those of you that are looking at the numbers that are still looking at 365, you'll see the columns that show the various payments that show the combined numbers. The one on the far right-hand side is the combined payment, again, for Litchfield Square and for the existing bond. One second. Here we go. For the Litchfield Square bond payments from the year 2022 through 2026, I gave you the worst year of those 4 years as far as payments. For that time period, the payment would be $520,200 a year, will not exceed that number. From the period of 2027 through 2030, will not exceed $594,600 a year. 2031 to 2051 will not exceed $908,400 a year. On the existing debt, the highest year of those 10 years will be $320,200. The total bond payment, again, between Litchfield Square and the existing bond, the highest year will be $908,400. Again, that is the highest year of that term. One thing I would stress to you, as we've discussed this before, is that we've set these bond payments up. As you know, we've worked on this a lot back and forth to get these numbers to a manageable amount. We started at 26 million, went back and forth several times to get this number where we are. And the city can do this. We can make this bond payment without affecting operations whatsoever. It would have no impact on staff. The only impact it would be if there was no revenues from city center whatsoever, it would affect CIPs, but it would not affect general operations. I think that's a great place to be, and council's worked very hard to have us in that position where we can make that statement financially. That's quite an accomplishment. Again, that's absolute worst case scenario if there was zero revenue coming from Litchfield Square. We certainly don't think that will happen, but if we had to, we could pay it out of CIP money, just to be sure. Again, there's a lot of documents that go forward with this. This bond was advertised a few weeks ago, so we can go and get it out there and see what the interest was. If this goes through tonight, we expect to have the money in hand by early October.
Any questions from council? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Do I understand correct? What we're doing is going out to bid for whoever's going to give us the lowest interest rate, and these numbers may change a little bit?
Mark, are you here with us?
I see Kafiso on there. I saw Mark earlier.
He might need to be unmuted. He's on the phone. So if Marissa can.
This is Michael Cafiso. I can address it if Mark can't. I know he's been trying to get in on the call.
Is that 602 number, Mark's?
Yes.
Marissa, can you unmute him?
There he goes.
Mark, can you hear us?
All right. There he is.
Did you hear the Vice Mayor's
Mayor?
question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Yeah, to answer your question, we've, as you know, been working hard and close with staff And we're, with your approval tonight, ready to proceed with the issuance of bonds probably next week is our current plan. And to answer the question, the city secured, I think as you're aware, a AA credit rating from Standard & Poor's. And so now we're in a position to go out and set interest rates in the marketplace. So what we do in terms of that, and the numbers will change slightly, we're working really hard to get you, really below 3% money all in. Bear with me on that, okay? Low 3%, high 2% money. If you recall, we have a 5-year call feature on that will allow us to pay these bonds down as the CFD comes together, as you all know, as part of the plan. But we will establish interest rates next week based on your credit rating and market conditions. We will go out into the market. We will determine what the investor demand is for the bonds. And we will then set interest rates, and we will fix interest rates on that day based on market conditions and the demand for your bonds. So that's how the negotiated bond market works. I suspect we're going to have significant demand for your bonds just due to the quality credit rating of your city and the projects you're working on. And if we do get excessive demand and excessive number of orders, that'll be an opportunity for us to fine tune and lower the interest rates at the time that we go out. So to answer your question, I hope that was helpful. The process of selling the bonds is a negotiated process as we get into the market and as we determine the demand for the bonds once we're in the marketplace. So I hope that's helpful, Mr. Mayor and members of the council.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Not really. The payment schedule that we were looking at with that maximum $908,400 payment in the year 2049, that's really just the best guess at this point. That number could actually be lower or maybe even a little bit higher based upon what happens in the market when you go out on these bonds.
Correct. We base these based on a conservative interest rate, so we're pretty confident we're going to come fairly close to these numbers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Was it Brainerd Watson that had her hand up? There we go. Yes or no? Councilman Brainerd Watson, do you have a question?
I did. It was more of a comment than a question. I think I've harassed Matthew on this week's, this meeting's packet so much that he probably won't talk to me again. But the amount of work that's gone into this is just immense. And I just wanted to compliment everybody involved in that, because the amount of detail and precision and one thing I commented to him, I said, it's so much, I hope you guys were able to boilerplate some of this. And Matthew kind of confided that most of the document, because of the nature of what we're doing, couldn't be boilerplated. So I think that tells us some really good things about the people we've got working for us. And I just want to compliment you guys all on that.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council?
Thank you.
All right, if not, is there a motion to adopt resolution? Let's see, where are we at? I think I skipped one here. Oh, no, here it is. Resolution CFD 21-01, approving a sale and execution and delivery of pledged revenue obligations series 2021 and pledged revenue refunding obligation series 2021 as presented in the packet.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Donahue. Is there a second?
Second.
By Vice Mayor. Any further discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. No opposition, so the motion passes unanimously. So go get our bonds sold. Michael and
Mark, sir.
Mark, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Mark.
Will do, Mayor. Thank you. We're looking forward to it.
Thanks for all your hard work. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Next item is Litchfield Square request for qualifications, which is in your packet. Mr. Williams.
Mayor and Council, this is something that came out of the working group. As you know, we've been discussing for several months now to put out an RFP, to put out an RFQ. You may remember we put out a previous RFP for City Center, and I want to say March of 2020. It received no bids, but if you remember what was happening during March 2020, that's when COVID was really getting started. So hard to think of a worse time in recent memory to put out an RFP. That being said, this was something we worked together on, was to put out an RFQ. RFQ, of course, is a request for qualifications. And this will be sent out, and mainly we're looking for developers. This is really to gauge interest from developers, to see people that are interested in this project. One, who's interested, what previous experience do they have in building a project like this, what financial backing do they have, who are the key partners that would be involved in this project, etc. If you guys do approve this, this would come back in time to bring results from this RFQ for the October council meeting.
Question, Mr. City Manager. The lead into the RFQ talks about leasing or purchasing property, but it looks like if you go further into the RFQ, it talks only about people who are interested in leasing the property. Is this intended to apply to both situations, both leasing and purchasing?
That's correct, sir. So it could be used for leasing or purchasing.
Well, we need to make sure that you check the wording that's in the body of this to make sure that it's clear that it could be, we're looking for qualifications for people who are interested in doing either or.
Okay. Do you mind if I refer that to the city attorney, sir?
No, absolutely. I think that I can see him sitting there chomping it as, this is billable time for the city attorney. So we're going to definitely get him involved in this. We want to make sure it's clear, because there's some places in there that talk about leasing and purchasing, and some places that talk about leasing only. So we just want to make it clear.
Correct, Mayor and members of the council. And this one was more focused on just trying to get some requests for interest, whether it was leasing or purchasing. As the council may be aware, there's a different process that the city has to follow with a purchase proposal. It's got to go through a bidding process. So there would be an additional step we'd have to take if there were a number of developers that expressed interest in purchasing as opposed to leasing. Then we could implement the bidding process, and of course, then anything that is done through a bid process and a potential sale, if there's offers or comes in over 1.5 million, then that requires it to go to the voters for approval. So this was to get that process started, to be able to get the interest in for both leasing and for purchase. And because of the additional requirements, if there are interest for purchases, we'd have to do an additional process. So that's why you'd see that most of this RFQ focuses on the leasing process, because that doesn't require us to go through that additional bidding process.
So after this RFQ, if we have a developer who's interested in leasing a parcel of land, we could actually negotiate that lease with that interested party and then bring that to council.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We've had expressions of interest, Matthew. I think one I sent you a few months ago was a restaurant owner in another city who wanted to look at putting in a restaurant. Since we've got this thing cut into the size of parcels we got to cut into, have we cut out these small people that want to, build a one thing shop? And are we looking only then at people who can afford to put in a 15,000 foot multi-tenant building? How are we addressing these people?
No, sir. Mr. Vice Mayor, we haven't cut out any parcels for single buildings. My approach for that would be that they would need to approach a developer about that, to someone that's developing a parcel or a building. To be honest, I think for the kind of money we're talking about on this land, I think it would be hard to make the parcels work or someone with just a single building can make it work financially. I think that'd be very hard to do. I think they'd be much better to lease or purchase a space in a development that's being built on one of the parcels. But to that question, we have had several contacts from restaurateurs, et cetera, that want to build a specific space. We've also had a lot of developers contact us that want to purchase one parcel or multiple. We've also had several that want to purchase the whole thing. One thing we discussed, but that I should tell you, is we're working on setting this up for the election. As Joe said, if it receives a bid over 1.5 million, that triggers an election. We don't know what the bids are going to go out at. We won't know that till it comes in on the RFP. But we're setting this up with Terry through the county so that if an election is required, that we could have the parcels on the bid next March. And also that if council decided to have the option of selling this as one large parcel, we could do that as well. But of course, to do that, again, it would have to go through an election.
Yeah, and my concern is that I don't want to be in a situation that many other cities have been in, where one developer has come in, tied up all the property, then does nothing. And then they wind up sitting on it, litigating, for some period of time while the developer's got it tied up and he's waiting for the values to go up even more before he does anything with it. We need to make sure we keep it moving so that, and I think we had some documents drafted once upon a time. I hope they're in this packet, where they have to build, they have to do something with a certain period of time. So, yes, yeah, okay.
Mayor, I have a question.
Okay. If you could wait one moment, because I think I had a question from Councilman Brainerd Watson earlier. Yes or no? No? Okay, so then Councilman Donahue, it's your turn.
So Matthew, the parcel that went out in April of 2020, wasn't that just one parcel, one piece? And we, and though this isn't sort of, I don't know how this works, but because we had interest in that. So it was really just one piece and one parcel, right? We weren't talking about what we recently just sent out, which was for the whole thing, or no? I'm confused on that.
The RFP that went out in March of 2020 was for just one parcel. That's the parcel between downtown and the Church of Litchfield Park.
In the church, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
This process will be different. This is just an RFQ, or really a developer could just let us know they're qualified, they have the team, they have the financial backing, the vision to build something like this. If they wanted to actually buy a parcel, there would be an additional bidding process on top of that. However, if we leased it to someone, they wouldn't have to do necessarily an RFP. But this would be different than what was done before.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any. Is there a motion to approve the release? I'm sorry? Is there somebody who had a comment? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the release of the Litchfield Square request for qualifications?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Brainerd Watson. Is there a second?
Good.
Second by Councilman Romack. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We will get the RFQ on the street. Next item is the Litchfield Square restroom design. Mr. Scouten.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you know, the zoning for the city center requires that all buildings be approved by the city council. So one of the first buildings to be built in the city center will be the restroom, the main restroom. Ultimately, we're planning for 2 restrooms. There's an exhibit in your packet that shows where the second restroom would be located, basically south of the amphitheater in the park. This first restroom was designed by adaptive architects and incorporates all the things that we're going to need to get the park up and running, as well as potentially public Wi-Fi and irrigation and so on. This design was vetted through the Design Review Board on August 5th, 2021, which recommended approval of the design with no conditions. And just kind of an overview, if you've looked through the several exhibits that are in your packet, you'll see that it provides both women's and men's restrooms. It also provides a family restroom, a janitor room, a room for the Wi-Fi equipment and landscape irrigation facilities. and also a room for pumping, water pumping, not only for the water feature, but also to provide increased water pressure for lawn watering of the large lawn area to the south of the restroom. And I think that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? Mr. Vice Mayor.
You said this went through design review. Did we also show this through Parks and Rec?
No, it did not go through Parks and Rec. You're referring to RPG or?
Yeah, RPG, what, Parks and Rec, what do you want to call it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it did not go through RPG. RPG originally recommended that we have a restroom in the park, which, you know, is a good idea, but they have not seen the design.
Actually, you know, Woody, I do think, remember we had that meeting with marketing, RPG, and designer review, and they were talking about stone and so forth, and somebody did show that picture. I don't know how closely they looked at it. But,
yeah, Councilmember Donahue, you're correct that it was shown during that meeting, and there really was little discussion about it.
Right.
Well, can you, if this is approved tonight, can you take this and get it back to RPG to somehow work them into the system, maybe after the fact at least?
Sure, we can do that.
It would make sense to let them see let them see it, but in the past we have gone to RPG for the basic question of what should be in the park, including restrooms. But then once they passed on, you know, the concept we want to put a restroom in, the council has just dealt with putting the restroom in and dealing with what it looks like in terms of what the restrooms we built in the other parks in the city. I don't think it's gone back and had the design of the restroom discussed by the RPG. But it's certainly fine to take it back to them and see if they have any comments on it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we keep them in the loop. I mean, we do have a commission there that's got a job, and I don't want to step on their toes. And if they want to come back with some other suggestions also on some other portion of it, they need to see the whole big picture, start giving us little ideas and little pieces of it.
It's fine. It's fine. You know, it's fine to take it back and have them take a look at it. The motion, I think, can be. I think we can approve this, you know, with a proviso that if RPG has objections, that we'll take those objections into account and take another look at it.
Mayor, if I can just say, the design review did invite RPG to that last meeting, so I don't know if that counts, Paul, but they were there, I believe. And so that was Susan that invited them, which is good. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, I want to make sure we are keeping them in the loop and not cutting them out somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, they're volunteering their time, and I want to make sure they feel their value is being used.
Yeah, I had thought there was a joint meeting between design review and RPG that looked at this, but I don't have the specifics on it. So given that, is there a motion to approve the design of the Litchfield Square restroom with a proviso that we will make sure that RPG had an opportunity or has an opportunity to weigh in if they have objections? So moved by Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilman Romack. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the design is approved. We can build a restroom once we get RPG's approval or buy-in.
Thank you.
Next item is Monument Point lot combination. Mr. Scouten.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we have a developer who is preparing to build a multi-story, I think it's a 2-story building that will be an enclosed, air-conditioned, self-storage building that faces onto El Mirage Road, just south of Camelback Road. The project has gone through DRB and is moving into final design. I've just done the second review of their engineering plans. The building official is in the process of reviewing their building plans. And one thing that we need to do is to combine, because this is a fairly big project, we need to combine 3 of the lots in Monument Point into one lot so that we don't have the building straddling property lines. So this is a lot combination plat that will do that. It'll combine 3 lots into one. That way they'll have ownership of one lot for one building and associated parking and so on. And as I said, they're now requesting an at-risk grading permit indicating that they want to get going on the construction fairly quickly. So what staff is recommending is to approve the lot combination plat as presented, and we will not record it until they actually pull a construction permit and begin construction.
All right. Just so that there's no confusion, the building is being proposed as I believe it's a 3-story building for the self-storage units, just so that so the council's not proceeding down a path that isn't accurate. Are there any questions from council about this lot combination? Seeing none. Oh no, I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Very quick one. Is this correct? The restaurant on the corner and then the car repair place, there's a massive amount of land in between them for maybe retention or something. It looks like enough for another building. Is that not a lot in here, or is that just between their 2 lots?
Yeah, there's no additional lot between those 2. They just happen to have their retention basins backing up to each other.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the replat of the Monument Point lots 4, 18, and 19 to combine them into one single lot?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Councilman Romack. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. We will do the replat. Next item is the Downtown Storm Drain Intergovernmental Agreement. Mr. Scouten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is an IGA between the city and the flood control district for funding the phases, the last 2 phases of our downtown storm drain system. Phase 4 is extension of storm drain up Old Litchfield Road to Fairway Drive and then west on Fairway Drive. Phase 5 is to extend a storm drain up from Wigwam out in Neolin Avenue, from Wigwam Avenue to the Wigwam property. Both of these phases have been in the master plan for some time. And we have, excuse me, we have a long history of working with the flood control district to fund these on a 50% basis. So this, right now, these projects are estimated at a total of about $2 million, of which the flood control district will pay half. Since we don't know what the total final construction estimate is, because we haven't done the design yet, this IGA is just for the design of the storm drains and preparation of a good cost estimate for entering into another IGA with the flood control district at the time that we're ready to move ahead with construction. So this IGA is for design, rights of way acquisition, and utility relocations. We don't anticipate any rights of way acquisition nor utility relocations, especially at this time because we haven't finished the design. So this is basically to get the engineering going so that we can move ahead with the project. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Would this design down Old Litchfield Road, is any portion of that for the city center project at all? Or is that, do we even need to think about that? Or has it been considered? Has it been upsized?
It is related to the city center in a certain aspect, and that is that we need to have this storm drain in place, especially in Fairway Drive, in order to intercept all of the flow that comes out of the Loma area, crosses Fairway Drive, overtops the airline canal, and runs into the city center property. When the property is vacant, it's not an issue, but when we start building infrastructure and buildings, we can't have that water flooding into the city center. So that's one of the main purposes of this storm drain project. And I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, I think you did. I mean, it's going to protect city center, but it's not going to really drain city center.
That's correct.
It's necessary for us to do this to be able to build city center. Any other questions from council? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement with the Flood Control District of Maricopa County for the design, right-of-way acquisition, and utility relocation for the downtown storm drain project phases 4 and 5?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Rostosi. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Brainerd Watson. Any further discussion? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, the one that's running down Neolin, is that designed to take part of the peninsula water that comes across the golf course?
Is there anything that comes across the golf course from wherever it comes? Peninsula might end up there.
Yeah.
Peninsula's the other direction.
I'm sorry. It is intended to pick up some excess runoff that comes off the golf course south of the airline canal. As you know, the airline canal splits the golf courses, and X is kind of a miniature dam and deflects the water over towards Old Litchfield Road and actually under Old Litchfield Road in the canal. So the purpose of the Neolin storm drain is not only to drain what comes on to Neolin, but also to pick up some excess runoff from the Wigwam property.
A lot of the property a lot of that water that comes from Peninsula ends up exiting the golf course before it's going to get to Neolin. As far to the west. The Peninsula, if you go directly south from Peninsula, it really is going to hit on. It's going to end up on Villanueva and go through the storm drain process over on the Villanueva side more.
Yeah, the Peninsula primarily ends up in one of the golf course lakes.
This is going to be a substantial construction project right in our town. Do we have an idea when this is going to take place and how long it will take?
Not yet. We need to finish the design in order to finalize the project schedule. My guess is that it won't start construction until spring of next year, and probably take about 4 months for construction. The good news is that this will be in the northbound lane of Old Litchfield Road. Now, another factor in this project is that we are discussing with Liberty Utilities the idea that they need to replace an old water line in Old Litchfield Road, which could be included in this construction. And it sounds like they're willing to move ahead with that approach. The nice thing about that is that the old water line is in the southbound lanes, but the new water line would be in the northbound lane. So again, we would avoid a couple of things. One is we wouldn't be tearing up the street 2 times, in a year or a year and a half. But we would also be able to avoid tearing up the southbound lanes other than making those connections back to the new line. We also plan, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're going to repave these streets or just cut them up and patch them in?
No, we've been holding off on repaving the northbound lane for this reason. We wanted to get the storm drain construction finished and then come in and repave that. The southbound lane was repaved I'm gonna have to guess at this, probably at least 10 years ago. In that case, we'll probably just do a mill and overlay so that we don't have a trench patch running down across the street where we need to make those connections.
And we literally back in 2010 or 11, not 10, 2000, is that right? Maybe it is that long ago. Yeah, it probably is 2010, 2011. We did a micro seal on the northbound lane when we repaved the southbound lane. And we did the micro seal because we were going to do this project within the next year or so. And it's taken us 10 years to get to the point where we're going to do it. So.
Yeah. And we'll, when we're finished with this project, we'll evaluate what needs to be done to the southbound lane in terms of pavement restoration.
Any other questions from council? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Now we have the downtown storm drain engineering services. Mr. Scouten.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, now that you've approved the IGA with the flood control district, we need to get an engineer going on the design of the project. We advertised for engineering services. We got 4 submittals, 4 very qualified firms submitted. It was a tough selection process. We had an outside engineer involved in that selection process, and also someone from the flood control district was involved. After all the qualifications and points were tallied up, Aztec Engineering Group came out as the top qualified firm to undertake this project. And this isn't just design of a storm drain. This also involves getting rid of the floodplain that Scout Lodge currently sits in. Because the airline canal is a little bit elevated above the rest of the area there, it does pond, and you've seen it, you've seen ponding of the water there. And I don't know the complete history of how that floodplain came to be, but there is a FEMA floodplain, official floodplain there, and we would like to get rid of it if possible. And this storm drain, because it limits what we can do within that floodplain. This storm drain project gives us the opportunity to do that. So the engineer has 2 main tasks. One is to design the storm drain, and one is to work with FEMA to go through the process of officially eliminating that storm drain. It's called a conditional letter of map revision. And once we build the storm drain improvements, FEMA will hopefully will make that storm drain or that floodplain go away. So staff is recommending award of a engineering services contract to Aztec Engineering Group in an amount not to exceed $346,728. I should say that this amount also included a contingency amount of about, I think it was $25,000 for design of that Liberty water line. I wanted them to include it because I hadn't gotten an answer back from Liberty as to whether they were going to handle that project. It now sounds like Liberty is going to have their own engineer do the design, so we won't have to spend that money.
That's good news. Any questions from council? Is there a motion to approve an engineering services agreement with Aztec Engineering in an amount not to exceed $346,728 for design of phase 4 and 5 of the downtown storm drain project? Moved by Mr. Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Romack. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item is the amendment to the reciprocal parking agreement with Litchfield Park Investments LLC. Mr. Scouten.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item has to do with an easement agreement between the former owner of the commercial center at the northwest corner of Wigwam Boulevard and Old Litchfield Road and the city, whereby the city and that former owner, Litchfield Park Investments, approved the recording of easements on each other's property to allow reciprocal parking for employees, shoppers, diners, guests, and so on. The location, the physical location of the easement on the city's property is in a location where we're planning to build a building in the future in the Litchfield Square project. So we wanted to move that physical location of the easement to keep it on that same parcel, which is the parcel that City Hall is located on, but move it to the south in an area where we are currently planning to have a parking lot and possibly a parking garage in the future. So it makes sense to have the easement there. The successor in interest to Litchfield Park Investments is Pagebrook Holdings, who owns that commercial center. They have agreed to the relocation of the easement. They have also waived the 60-day requirement. So we're bringing it to the council to amend this agreement to physically move the easement that's on the city property. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions from council? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Sorry for all the questions tonight, guys. Does this, he wants to do a restaurant, I understand, on the northwest corner of his property. Does this parking reciprocal easement affect that or assist with that in any way because there's some parking issues there?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, it does. It allows for parking of up to 80 vehicles, if you will, on a city property for customers, employees, and so on, for those who want, employees or shoppers, diners of that property that's owned by Pagebrook Holdings. That's correct.
So is this enough for him to meet our zoning requirements without doing much more?
I haven't done that specific analysis, but I know that his project, based on our current code and the current tenants that he has there, is under par. So my guess is that, yes, this parking easement would be necessary for him to meet the parking requirement for that building.
Then my last question would be, what would we do for dust control under PM10?
Well, in the interim, we'll be using asphalt millings that come out of Litchfield Road. We're going to grind up all that asphalt and use it for putting a layer of asphalt millings over all of the areas where we currently have parking for special events, or even for people just parking their vehicles, and it would include this 80 space area on our property.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion to adopt resolution 21-498 to accept a sidewalk easement and related oh no, that's the wrong, I'm sorry, excuse me. Is there a motion to approve the First Amendment to the reciprocal parking agreement between the City of Litchfield Park and Litchfield Park Investments LLC? Moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Romack. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item of business is the Wigwam Town Parcels Sidewalk Easement. Mr. Scouten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As a result of planning and designing the roundabout to go in Litchfield Road for the Litchfield Square project, we discovered that we can put the roundabout within our existing right-of-way, but the sidewalk that we need to relocate at that corner, at the southwest corner of that intersection, will need, a portion of it will need to be moved onto the Wigwam town parcels property there at the southwest corner of that 15-acre parcel. I met with a representative of Wigwam town parcels, went through where the exact easement needs to be located. It also includes a construction easement to allow us to do some other construction related to the roundabout. They're approving that easement location. I don't have the signed easement back from them yet, a signed easement document, but they have told me that they are ready to sign it and will sign it and deliver it to the city.
Any questions from council? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thanks again, guys. Are you saying that trellis, that entry feature, the lights, the trees and stuff are not on city property? They're on the Wigwam's property?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe. The monument signs that say the village, those are definitely on private property and they're not in an easement, according to Wigwam town parcels. The trellises are mostly in the right of way, although there's a little bit of it, of each one that kind of falls outside the right of way line. But yes, the trellises are in public right of way, the monument signs are not.
And I presume we don't maintain it, maybe the HOA does or something?
Actually, we do maintain it. I can't say that we maintain the monument signs, but we cut the grass, change the light bulbs, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? If not, is there a motion to adopt resolution 21-498 to accept a sidewalk easement and related temporary construction easement from Wigwam Town Parcels LLC? Moved by Councilman Brainerd Watson. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Romack. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, final item on my list is introduction of ordinance 21-251 concerning the Court Enhancement Fund. Mr. Williams.
Mayor and council, this is a revision to our existing Court Enhancement Fund ordinance. You may remember during the budget process this year, we discussed this about paying for some court expenses out of the Court Enhancement Fund. There are several different court funds. This one was created some years ago, supposedly as a rainy day fund for the court. It currently has a balance of $195,000. In the past few years, staff has been very selective with things they would pay out of this account, extremely. Things like a computer, et cetera, so much so that it's gathered a really large balance and it's very tight on what you can spend money on. And that's the reason why we're looking at making these changes. In my opinion, it shouldn't have that large of a balance when it's so narrow what you can spend the money on. So this change would make it so the Court Enhancement Fund, the first thing will always be spent on court expenses. That's very important to understand. It won't be spent on public works or roads or parks and rec. It's court money. It should stay court money. However, we would establish a minimum reserve of 50 grand, and anything above 50 grand could be spent on other court expenses, such as court staff, wages, salary, benefits, etc. That kind of thing. That's basically what it does. It allows us to make those changes. We would break those up over several years. And of course, that would help cover expenses that we would otherwise pay a general fund, at least till this Court Enterprise Fund, Enhancement Fund gets down some to a more reasonable amount. That's the main gist of this. There's also some change you'll see in your council communication. where we've made some change on how the court funds will be processed to the finance department to make us more run the same way that other cities do, as far as how court numbers, court finances are documented, go through the finance department process as they should be. But again, this is a first reading for your consideration. If you are good with it and have no changes, we'll come back with a second reading in October. I would tell you also, we did discuss this with the mayor, the mayor was at this meeting, but also Judge Ring was there and the court clerk was there as well. And we did go over these changes. Welcome any questions if there are any.
Yeah,
Questions?
Matthew, I have a question, Mayor. So how long do we think it will take to bring that down? A year or two? I mean, we can pay salary out of that, in which case that's more money in our budget. How does that work?
Yes, ma'am. That's how I'm recommending this change. I would break it down into 2 years. So you'd be spending about 75 grand a year. We could do it differently, but I wouldn't do it quick. I would break it down over several years. And that gives us time too to track how much money it's going to be making while we're doing that. Because it will continue to make some funds from court action. So it'll be interesting to track that as well as we spend money, how much new money is going into this account.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Excuse me. Seeing none, is there a motion to introduce ordinance 21-251, amending Article 5-3 proceedings of the magistrate court and Section 5-3-2, the Court Enhancement Fund, subsection A?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Donahue. Is there a second? Second by the Vice Mayor. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Mayor, can we get a roll call on the ordinance?
I'm sorry?
Can we do a roll call for the ordinance?
We can if you would like.
Yeah, I typically, especially on ordinances, it just makes it easier to follow with the statute.
Sure. Mr. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Councilmember Romack,
Aye.
Mayor Schoaf,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Faith,
Aye.
Councilmember Watson,
Aye.
Councilmember Rostosi,
Aye.
Councilmember Donahue.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried. The motion carries as presented. I don't believe we have a need for an executive session. Is that correct, Mr. City Manager?
Correct, sir.
Okay, so then is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved.
Moved by Councilman Rostosi, seconded by Councilman Donahue. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Before we adjourn, I want to thank you for your attention in a very long meeting tonight. We had an incredibly large agenda with some very significant items on it. I'm glad to see that we actually got through in a fairly expeditious manner. We got everyone's questions answered. So thank you for your attention. I appreciate it. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Right. We're adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Good evening.
Night, all.
Have a nice night.
Thanks for that, Matt.